everyone, this is Marla and welcome back. Today I'm sharing the new Meadow Muse product suite from Crafty Meraki. I showed you the beautiful background stamp. We have the coordinating die, a press-tacular plate, and to finish off the product suite, we have the stencil. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of Copic coloring. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I will show you the process coloring up one of my flowers. And we are going to start with a piece of 4¼ by 5½ inch white accent opaque cardstock. This is 80-pound cardstock. And we are going to ink up our stamp using some Gina K amalgam ink. Now, this ink pad does need to be re-inked badly, so I am going to have to stamp it 3 separate times. That's not because there's a problem with the stamp. It's because my ink pad just is not juicy enough and I need to add a little bit more ink to get the depth of color that I'm looking for. I wanted to go with a black background for the flowers and outline for the flowers. As I mentioned, I'm going to be doing some Copic coloring. When I have a large background like this, I like to use a flicking motion when I'm coloring flowers, and that's because for me, it's really quick and easy. It doesn't require a lot of time. It doesn't require a ton of blending. In fact, the center of the flower, because that's where the darkest part of a flower would be anyway, is going to automatically become the darkest because as I continue flicking with my light, dark, and medium Copic markers, I keep extending the lines out, but the center I keep going over with those 3 colors, which adds that depth. I'm very careful to make sure that I'm leaving the tips of those flowers white. And the reason that I do that is when I come in with my final application, so I will go over this flower 3 different times in the same combination, light, medium, dark, light, medium, dark. And then finally, I'm going to fill in that white space with the lightest color, and you're going to see that it's going to give me a beautiful highlight. As I mentioned, I am not coloring everything on this panel, but I will show you the finished panel when I am done with this flower. This is a beautiful, oh my goodness, this is such a beautiful floral background. You're going to see that later on, I'm also going to lightly ink it up with some gray ink and use that subtle panel as my background. So there are many uses for this. If you did not hop along on Monday, there was a release Instagram hop. It's still going on, so you're welcome to join that. I will link my Instagram channel in the description box below so that you can hop along for a chance to win a $50 gift card. But I did use this stamp in another way. Just for a second idea on how you can color this up. It isn't Copic colored, so I hope that you'll click that link and follow along. There's the beautiful Meadow Muse all inked up. It's a beautiful background that I could use. I could just put a sentiment on this, add it to a top folding card panel, and the card would be finished. But of course, I love to cut things up. If you watched my last video, I was using the Birds of a Feather product suite, and I did cut that panel up, and I'm doing the same thing with this beautiful Copic colored panel, except this time I'm using circle dies, and we are going to rearrange the pattern this way. So I used a large die for my focal point that I want on my card. I'm going to have 2 additional circles. I love things in 3s as much as I can, so I am going to use 3 different circles. the large one, and then of course the two smaller ones, which are going to highlight some of the smaller flowers. I do want to mat these, so I'm going to come in with a circle die that is one size larger. It's going to give me approximately a 1/4 inch black reveal around the back of those circle flowers, and that is really going to allow this to pop on my card. So 2 circle dies, and then finally I'll use a large lace die that I had in my stash. You can see that right there. And I am going to run this through twice. I'll run it forward and then I'll run it backward one more time just to make sure that I get all of those little details from the lace edges cut out, and this little piece is going to add a touch of elegance to the card. So there you can see how these images really pop. The coloring was quick and easy, and now we want to add that subtle background that we talked about earlier using the same background stamp and another 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of cardstock. I have some Pink Fresh Studio Misty Coast ink, and I only need to ink this once, and you can see how subtle but very beautiful that background is. I'm using the Crafty Meraki Hay die. I went ahead and cut it off camera. For the back layer, I used some green vellum, and then for the letters, of course, I went back in with the matching black cardstock. And finally, we are going to trim this down. So I'm trimming it down about a 1/4 inch. So on the left or on the right and the bottom of this panel, I just cut a 1/4 inch off. And then I am going to attach this to an A2 piece of black cardstock. Again, that's going to give me that little bit of 1/4 inch reveal. To add more detail to the card, to allow different dimensions, we're going to start with the largest layer, and we are going to add the foam tape to the back of that. I'm going to add the foam tape to the back of these circles, and the reason, or the top layer of the circle, and the reason that I'm adding that there is because this is going to change the height of this, because I am going to add a little bit of foam tape to level out my layering piece. So you can see there that the top piece has that foam tape giving it the lift, and then when I need to glue it to the panel, because the large circle, I hope this is making sense, because the large circle has foam tape on it, I need to add a small piece of foam tape to the bottom circle, to the bottom portion of that circle, and then the top circle, I'm going to add it to the top portion where it's not overlapping the circle, and that will give me a level card. But the two smaller circles are popped up with that second bit of foam tape, so now we have a multi-dimensional card. Now that hay die, because I have 2 layers of foam tape on the bottom circle, and because part of that word die is going to overlap that, I need to add 2 layers of these little circle foam squares to the back of the H and part of the E, and off camera I also added it to that bottom little loop on the Y, and that's just going to give stability to my sentiment. We're going to remove this foam tape, but we do need to bring in our 2 circles to see where they're going to overlap. Make sure that there's plenty of room on this card for all 3 of those circles. Once I get it where I want it, I'm just going to press that larger circle in place. Here's where I added that little bit of foam tape. You can see that I'm going to add some glue to the edge where it's going to overlap my lacy image. And I made sure that I cut out an area where the leaves were so that I wasn't covering up the 2 flowers that I wanted to be the focal point. And here I'm just going to cover up part of that blue flower. There'll be a little bit of it peeking out. Make sure that I have that foam tape right in the right spot. And then finally, we're going to add our sentiment. I want to add a little bit more detail to this card. I'll first start out with a little bling. So I have these little gems from Spellbinders. They are clear gems. They're kind of like crystals. I'm going to add these to the center of all of my flowers. And then I'm going to show you a close-up of this card. When I show you the close-up, I forgot to turn my camera on, but I did add some detail with a white gel pen to each of the flowers. I added little dots just to help those flowers pop a little bit more. So when I show this close-up here in just a moment, you're going to see the beautiful layers that we were able to get, the dimension, and then of course I do have that bit of white that I've added to the flowers in the aftermath here. Thank you so much for joining me today, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.